Okay, in this episode we're going to go over the cost of moving to a rural area and starting a new life in rural America. One of the things people think of when they move rural is cost savings, but there's a lot of hidden costs and a lot of expenses that you have to keep in mind. The biggest thing right now is actually the cost of property is going up. Even in rural areas. The area we purchase in, the prices have gone up, and we've noticed that to get equivalent property what we have now has gone up significantly. We still have a search on Zillow, Realtor, and things like that for the same criteria we're looking for right now, the amount of land, the lack of floodplain, and things like that, but the cost has gone up, and we've only been here a few months, even though the searching, purchasing, and all that process was quite a bit longer. I mean, it was months long. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is properties are going to just keep going up. Simple fact is the supply and demand. There's more people looking for rural properties than probably properties are available. When you look in rural areas, there's just less inventory in general. There's not as many people, so not as many houses. Okay, what's that sound? Actually nothing. I finally fixed the barn light up there. It had been buzzing since we purchased this place. Could not find the breaker for it. Literally had to go through every single breaker. Finally found it. It was tied up to the living room and bedroom lights, and ended up fixing that. It was buzzing. I lost some hearing from the military, and I get a buzzing in my ear, but the frequency of that light was literally driving me mad. It didn't bother my wife, but it's all I could hear when I was outside. So some of the expenses are just little repairs. That light needed to be, I ended up taking it down. It was completely full of bugs. The housing, I thought it was a mouse nest, and there was just dead bugs. The wire nuts that were in there were cracked. I think it was shorting out, and it was so hot to the touch I couldn't even touch the housing because it had been on continuously. The photocell was broken. It was always on, buzzing, and then it would just stop randomly out of the blue and then come right back on again and buzz even louder and kind of change in pitch. So one of those things. You're probably going to buy a rural property. There may not be code, so you're going to do a lot of repairs. I've been fixing things left and right here, just little things that just are so annoying. One of the other expenses you might not think about is storage. Maybe you're coming from a bigger house, you move to the country, you get a small house, and you just don't have the storage. Maybe you get a tiny house like this, you think you can do it, but what are you going to do with all that stuff that you have until you make the move? You need to store it someplace. You may have to store it at friends and families. You may have to buy, rent storage. It's one of those things to consider. Our new house is the smallest house we've owned ever, and we're having a little trouble fitting some of our belongings. So it's one of those things. You don't think about it, it's an expense, because you need to, some of the things you had in your previous place, you might not be able to fit here, which we found out. And we have to sell it, give it away, and have to buy new. So that's an expense. The other expense is how are you going to move your belongings? We initially bought this trailer, and this trailer, I want to say, was about $4,000, and we didn't want to buy a used one because we did not have the time to deal with the bearings. I didn't want to have to go over the bearings. I didn't want to have to go over the brakes, different things like that. We just wanted easy button, and we figured it out, did the math. We're like, oh, we could buy this trailer, maybe 5 trips, and we'd be done. It's been well over 5 trips, plus we also had to get a U-Haul at one point, and my brother's trailer to haul our tractor. So it's expenses like that. So you figure, I think our U-Haul was about $2,000. This was $4,000. To transport the tractor, luckily my brother helped. You know, I had to chip in gas, obviously. But if it wasn't for that, I think I priced transporting the tractor, and it was between $1,000 to $2,000, depending on the transport company. So, you know, that's a pretty big expense right there, just in the trailer and the U-Haul. The U-Haul, we figured it was, we got a 26-footer. We took a huge amount. This, we figured, was $4,000. We knew we were going to use it multiple times. Trailers hold their value well. When we're done moving, which we're still not, we will probably sell this. And hopefully, depending on how long it is before we sell it, we'll get close to what we paid for it. As inflation goes up, this, you know, a new trailer like this is probably $5,000 now. So we could probably sell it for what we bought it for, or, you know, a little less. So we're not too worried about that. But the trailer has been very helpful. But you still have to also consider with the trailer and additional expenses. Every single time I travel now, I have a toolkit with, I have a grease gun, I have an additional jack, and a spare tire. These don't come with a spare tire, so I had to buy a spare tire. These are built very poorly, in my opinion. I've had to do repairs on this thing already. You know, the companies that make these, they didn't Loctite a lot of things. A lot of screws fell out. The license plate holder fell off. I mean, just, you'd expect a lot more from what you pay for these, but they're built very cheaply and pretty poorly, in my opinion, for what you get. And then the cost of fuel. Our truck here, we've been using it so much. When we purchased this property, we had 60-something thousand miles on it. We just hit 80,000 miles. I had to do transmission fluid change just because it had been running so high on the interstate, the transmission temperature. The maintenance on this, it's not much, but I mean, it's one of those added expenses. You're going to be putting a lot of miles, wear and tear in your vehicle, and it's going to be an added expense. So our tires are still good, but we put a lot of miles on it. Another expense on our truck was camper shell. We didn't have the camper shell on here before. We use this truck primarily as our homestead, you know, truck to just get gas, carry animals, things like that. We needed the camper shell so we could carry more items, and the cheapest one we could find, I tried finding a used one. Every truck is different now. They changed this shape, so it's really hard to find one that will fit good. I didn't really care about the color. The best used one I could find at the time was $900, and it wasn't the right length. It didn't fit. I tried to, you know, and we finally just ran out of time and had to go buy one. And then when you go to buy one, you have to order it too. So it was a few weeks before we got it, but it was the cheapest one we could get, and it's not very good quality, and it was $2,000. So you had $2,000 to there, $4,000 for the trailer. You know, yeah, it adds up quickly on the move, just moving alone. And the fuel on this truck, it's got the V6. When we drive, you know, putts around the mountains, our current place here, just go to town, whatnot, we get about 20 miles to the gallon, which is pretty good for a full-size truck. On the interstate, hauling the trailer, fully loaded, we get about 9 miles per gallon. So, I mean, I figured it out, every trip just in fuel, back and forth, is over $300. Just, you know, a round trip to go grab some supplies is about $300 just in fuel, plus the wear and tear in the vehicle, plus the you know, the shortened amount of time for maintenance intervals. So, you know, I just had an oil change, and I'm already about 50% oil life, where I need to get an oil change, you know, much quicker than normal. Our truck, we put so few miles on it, and now we're just using it all the time and putting a lot of miles on it. It was one of those things that we didn't think it was going to be that many miles. Then another expense is, we're not there yet, other vehicle, which is Hyundai Kona all-wheel drive. Is it suitable for the new property you're going to get? Luckily, our drive to get to the house is about a half-mile gravel. It's pretty smooth, luckily. A lot of properties we looked at, this car would not make it, and you would either need like our truck or some other kind of high ground clearance vehicle. But that's another expense you might need to consider. And the biggest one too is reliability. When you're out a little bit more remote areas, you want a reliable vehicle. So you're gonna have to keep up on your maintenance and just keep on top of that, because you don't want to have a breakdown in the middle of nowhere and then be stuck. So you need to plan for that too. It's kind of like when you buy a used car, in your head you mentally budget about 25% of what you paid for the used car, because it's going to need brakes, it's going to need tires, and some random things are just going to pop up that just due to age and time. So keep that in mind when planning your moving vehicles, U-Haul, things like that, because you probably all have seen those pods that they drop off the pod at your old place and they deliver it to the new place. They don't do that out here. Most rural areas, the pods will not deliver. It's going to be up to you to figure out, you're either going to have to drive a U-Haul, or you're going to have to get a trailer, or you're going to have to do both and move it yourself, because most moving companies will not do it. A lot of the ship companies will deliver like a semi-truck trailer to the closest big city, and then you'll have to shuttle it. So instead of driving 10, 20 hours, they'll drive it an hour away from your new place, and you'll get like a week to go there and bring back loads back and forth. So that's another option, but it's an expense. Okay, what am I doing back here? Talking about another expense. Some hidden expenses that you could do beforehand, before you purchase the property. It's still going to be an expense though, is finding out where your septic tank is, finding out, things like that. Because our septic tank, right there under where this shed was. I don't know if anybody has seen that video where I moved the goat shed. The septic tank lid was underneath. Who would have done that? Why would somebody do that? But we had an idea it was there, and then finally we got it serviced, and we had to do some digging, and we filled the dirt back up again, but we're gonna mark it, put something there, and not put a shed over it, and so things like that you're gonna have to keep an eye out for. It's septics, not like the city with sewer. You're gonna have some. We're used to having a septic, so we knew it's what it costs roughly, maintenance on it, how much you're going to be spending, but yeah, so it's hopefully you're starting to see the money starting to counter going up and up and up, because I mean it is an expense. Another expense you may not be thinking about is once you get your new property, you're going to want storage on your property. And you're going to probably need an outbuilding, storage sheds, and things like that. Luckily, when we purchased this property, is one of the kind of bonuses for us. It had a couple storage sheds on here already, and it also had another outbuilding. We also had this other outbuilding, and then a second barn dominium down there. If you don't have any outbuildings on your property and you want them, you got to figure out those costs. Those little portable buildings, they're, I would say, range from, like the fabric one, maybe $1,000. The little wooden ones, $5,000 to $20,000, depending on how intricate and how fancy you want. These metal buildings, like this, they're common out here. It's not a typical pole barn. It's a metal frame. These are relatively more inexpensive. This one was probably under $10,000. It was here when we bought it, but I have been shopping around because we would like to have another building. But you need to plan about that too, because you're going to need some type of storage, more than likely. Another expense you're probably going to need is some type of machinery in the property. It could be as simple as you know, a push mower, garden tractor, things like that, chainsaws, tractor. You're going to need equipment probably. A lot of times you might have some stuff from living, you know, in a subdivision. Luckily for us, we came from 40-acre homestead to another good-sized homestead, and we owned a lot of the stuff. But as stated, you will have to move it. This was not easy to move. It was a lot of it was a hassle. I'm not going to lie. But we initially, when we were planning the move, we thought, oh, we could just sell this because they're selling for, you know, this much, and then we'll just go buy a new one. Inflation, whatnot, all that didn't happen. Just to give you an example, we purchased this tractor, I want to say 2017, maybe somewhere around there. I'm not exact sure on the dates, but it doesn't really matter. Just to show you inflation and how things are going. A Kubota L2501 was about $17,000 with a brush mower and I believe a rototiller. So the tractor was like 14, and then, you know, a little bit more for the implements. I was like, oh, I could sell this. You know, I was looking on Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, things like that. I was like, wow, these tractors are selling for like 17 grand. I was like, cool. I could just sell it and go buy a new one. I went to the Kubota dealer. This model, the L2501, is now replaced by the L2502, which is the same tractor, just has some upgrades, and it was same thing with the loader and everything. It was like $26,000. I was like, holy cow, we need to figure out how to move ours. So that is one thing we had to do, and we ended up moving ours. But it was one of those certain items we thought we could just sell and then replace. And then I still like the term my my good neighbor has told me, previous neighbor, but he's still a good friend, good neighbor, low value weight. We had to determine which stuff do we just get rid of because it's low value weight. It's just the cost of moving it is just not worth, it just wasn't worth it. So there's a lot of items I had, it makes me want to cry now, but I had in my old barn scrap metal that was new. I mean, I had scrap metal, new metal, lumber, 2x4s, I mean, brand new stuff, just brand spanking new. The cost of moving it, you know, the space, the fuel, you know, it just, I ended up giving it away. Every day I'm out here, I'm like, oh, you know, there's like things I need. I just need a piece of wood. I need a piece of that aluminum scrap that I had. I need to make a mounting plate. I just don't have it, and it hurts because I either have to go to town and go buy something or just make do without it. But it's a cost one way or another. It's a cost. It's a cost to my sanity at sometimes because it's hard to give some things like that up, but it's just low value weight when you think of the big picture of moving. Another expense with rural living is you want to have on hand enough fuel, because you're going to have more than likely you're going to need diesel for your tractor, and then you're going to need gas cans for different things, such as, you know, push mower, or things as, you know, your lawnmower, four-wheelers. One of the other expenses is internet. You can hardly see it in there, but there's a Starlink router there. This router is working in as a mesh router, so it's connected to our two other Starlink routers. Right now, we're facing the direction the router is pointed at. So if you see that pickup truck over there, to the left of it is the little blue studio building. There is a mesh router in there. And if you look up in that window over there, I've got another Starlink router in the bottom of that window. And then if you look into this window, I've got another Starlink mesh router. This one is actually the main router. And this one, if you look up above me, I've got the Starlink up there. And some things are just really not an unexpected expense, but in the case of this, the second barn dominium, we knew when we purchased this that this was a gut job and it was going to have to be torn out. I've been in here working a little bit, tearing it apart. Okay, I'm going to go briefly into this one, but you know, solar panels, energy. You need to figure out your energy costs too, because If you're buying a property with an existing structure on there, more than likely, I would say 99% of the time, you're going to have power to the house already, and it's not a big deal. If you're buying raw land, you need to determine the cost, if it's worth it to run electricity there, or just go off-grid and build an off-grid system. Or if you're like us and you want to have both, have a solar, battery backup, and be grid tied, you need to look into that too, the cost. We budgeted for our solar well when we were in our planning stages of our house hunting. We knew right away we were going to do solar, so we added that, or subtracted it from what properties we could look at, because we knew it was going to cost roughly, we had a rough idea. Luckily, solar is one of the things, the prices are getting better, and it actually was a little under our budget, which was great, but it really depends on the size of the system and things like that, but it is a cost you need to consider. Okay, this station is about homesteading, so one of the other expenses, if you have animals, is moving the animals. I did a video about moving our animals, the transportation cost. If anybody remembers earlier in this what I said about the cost for the tractor, the low end of transporting cost for the tractor was what it cost to transport the goats. And we looked at buying our own trailer, it was a one and done. It's just much easier to hire, for us, it was just easier to hire a transport company. It's funny though, I did notice when I was looking at the paperwork for our truck cap, which we bought the cheapest one of the options, and I wish I would have, at the time we didn't plan on it, but if I would have known, I would have paid the extra $100 or whatever it was. They sold animal screens, heavy metal screens that went on the inside of the windows on the truck cap, and I would have just did that and drove them. It would have been cheaper, but when we got the cap, we were only thinking of hauling cargo, not animals, so it not long-term hauling the animals. So I wish I would have known. I wish I would have prepared a little bit better. So that is an option now. If you buy a truck cap, most companies, they offer like metal mesh guards for the inside of the windows, so the animals with their horns can't knock out the glass. So, but the other thing is, hay. We had to purchase hay out here. We moved here, and of course it's not historic, but it's not a good one, but it's a drought right now. A lot of the grass is dead. There's not a lot of stuff for the animals to eat, so by the time we finally get our goats here, there's not much for them to eat, and it's like, it's dry here. So it's one of those things that we are probably going to use more hay than we expected. So it's one of those things, if you have animals, you might want to do some research on that too. So it's a lot of little hidden expenses. Okay, hopefully this was helpful. Obviously I didn't hit everything, but I guess I wanted this video to kind of just open your eyes to some expenses that you might not even be thinking about. It's one of those things that we thought we planned very well, and just a lot of things kind of caught us off guard. And hopefully this is helpful when you're planning your move, because I think prices are just going to keep getting higher on most items. And this is going to go to the last, because expenses are never ending. Once you plan on moving, you are moved, you're always going to need something, but keeping them at bay, I guess, is the best thing. And one of the last expenses, or I should say not an expense, but is jobs. One thing to consider, and I agree with this fully. They generally moving very rural, they say the best job in that area is the job you bring with you. And I've mentioned this in the past. My wife works remotely. I do not. I retired early. It just worked out that way. But looking at jobs in these areas, the wages are much lower than if you live in a city. We lived in our old property, it was rural, but it really wasn't rural. We were so close we were in between Milwaukee and Chicago. There was just jobs everywhere. If you could, used to be if you showed up on time, passed your drug test, and you know, I forget what it was, but you'd go very far. Now it's just if you have a pulse in that area, because they waive the drug tests because you know they just can't get anybody. But back where we used to live in Wisconsin, you can go to Target, any of these retail stores, they're starting you like $20, $21 an hour. In the area I'm at now, you're lucky if you could find a job for $11 an hour. There's just not that many jobs. So that is I guess another expense or not expense is it worth it? Like right now, it's worth it for me not looking for a job currently because I'm doing a lot of the maintenance and the fixing here. Because that's another, I guess it's not really an expense, but we're trying to spend money and get people local to do some work for us, and they just won't come out here. It's crazy. We knew about the up north, we used to call it the up north mentality, when in Wisconsin, if you own property up north, like your cabin or whatever, and you try to get a local to work on it for you, and they'd be like, oh, I'm hunting, I'm fishing, I'll get to you when I get to you. And that's how it is where we're at right now. I've reached out to some spray foam companies multiple times trying to get them to come out and give me an estimate. I finally contacted a big company that is a couple hours away, and they said, you know, they would do it, and they gave me a quote right away. I did the measurements, and they got back to me within, you know, hours, not months like some of the local ones. And I get it. It is what it is. But I need to get some of this stuff done. So, but me doing a lot of the legwork is saving money versus trying to hire somebody to come out here, like the electrical. I know enough. I can fix things, so I've been fixing that. Otherwise, we'd have to hire an electrician or a handyman. So I know enough that I can do handyman jobs. So it's offsetting an expense. Me doing it is, you know, taking away from us spending, you know, somebody else. And it's also a time thing, because you try to hire somebody and you know, they're like, oh, well, another service I'm not even going to mention, but I tried to get somebody to come out here, and it was last month. We're now in October. They said, you know, oh, I'll get back to you in December. I don't have any, I'm not available until then. You know, so I'm like, okay. And it's a service that back in Wisconsin, you could find anybody anytime they'd come out and do it, you know, so it's interesting. So you got to plan for that expense or subtract expense by doing it yourself. And the big thing too is you move to the country, rural, you need to be more self-reliant. So I'm just starting to just do things myself. I would do the spray foam myself, but everybody I've talked to said if you do it yourself, more than likely you'll spend the same amount of money and it won't be as good as somebody who's done it a few times, because you know they've had the practice. So holding out, but if you see a video with me doing spray foam, it's because I can't get a hold of something. I'm just to the point where I need it done. We budgeted for it, and I just can't get anybody to do it. So it's kind of one of those things you got to consider. So hopefully this was helpful. And till next time, and for returning viewers, thank you so much. For new viewers, that like and subscribe goes a long way. I do generate a little bit of money from this, not a lot, but a little bit helps when you've got you know, not much coming in, because most of it's going out. But yeah, till next time.